Good morning, Inspiring Illuminators. It is me, Jennifer Engel, your subconscious coach. And today we're going to be talking about, first of all, thank you for joining me on my Jaunt with Jen with all my sound issues with wind noise and everything. Again, my brand is raw and real. I don't have time to always worry about sound and everything, so I apologize for that. But at the same time, when you're out walking, you're going to hear the wind, you're going to feel the wind, you're going to hear the birds, cars passing by. Hashtag real life. So today, what we're going to talk about is we are going to talk about the ability to, quote unquote, hear spirit. What does that sound like, if you will? What does it feel like? So on my social media, I am doing a 6-day mini workshop on how do you expand your light, your consciousness. And yesterday, I talked about mindfulness, the ability to let go. Today, as you learn to let go, you might also learn how to see and hear. But the universe speaks and shows us things very differently than how the physical world speaks to us and shows us things. Okay? So, where do I start? It is a complicated topic. So again, I kind of use first of all, the spirit world speaks in symbols. It doesn't speak in words. It speaks in symbols, visions, and feelings. And it can also speak in words as thoughts in your head, but you kind of know they're not necessarily your thoughts. You know that they're coming from somewhere else. Okay, so those are like the main ways that the spirit world speaks to us. And it doesn't even have to be the spirit world, and I'll get there in a minute. Okay, so I need to kind of give you a little bit of background information. The biggest way that I think spirit tries to show us a little bit what consciousness is like is through trees. The tree is a huge symbol in many religions. Our neurons look like trees, our lungs look like trees, our veins look like trees. Lots of tree stuff going on. Okay, so at the trunk, if you can think about this, maybe even the trunk that meets the ground, right? That is neutral. That is one. That is unity. That is peace. That is stillness. And then, the other way you could look at it is that is one cell. Okay? And then from there, the spirit world divides. It fractals itself. And all the fractals are pieces of the whole, like a puzzle pieces. Also, in addition, if you think about a tree like an elevator, where you have maybe levels that are underground, levels that are on ground, and levels that are above ground. Okay? So how you experience those different fractions or divisions is going to be different depending on where you are in the elevator. Okay. So, at the trunk, ground level, we have unity, we have neutrality, neutral, kind of peace, stillness. Then imagine now, switch from a trunk at ground level to a cell. The cell decides that it's boring to just sit in eternity forever being a cell all by itself. So it splits itself apart from 1 into 2. This is where you get the yin and the yang, male and female, night and day, all the opposites, okay? Physical and spiritual. It splits itself. It wants to see itself. It wants to know itself. It doesn't want to be alone anymore in the universe. Okay? So now you have two forces. Physical and spiritual. Man, woman. Night, dark. Okay? Any opposite. Constructive, destructive. Sustainable, powerful. And again, depending where you are in the elevator of the tree of life, depends on what you experience. How you experience the polarity. That's what it's called. North Pole, South Pole. So, if your consciousness is low, everything underground in the darkness with the creepy crawlies and the worms and the maggots and whatever, that's where all of your anger, all of your guilt, all of your insecurities, all of your jealousy, hatred, lies, misperceptions, it all exists in the lowest part of your consciousness. Okay? So the split down there is going to look more like the gap between good and bad, angelic, devil, is going to be a lot more wider, a lot more distinct. All right. If you are on ground level of the tree of consciousness, that polarity will be balanced in one thing, which is why we might be starting to see more people being born on Earth who consider themselves more androgynous, who might have more balanced forces in them. So, we might have more LBGT. I don't know all the other suffixes, I'm sorry. There might be more of that, or it might become more aware. All right? Then you go higher up in the tree of consciousness, and that polarity is experienced more like children playing. We don't see it as like destructive, like exploding bombs and, nuclear energy, right? Where it's just like bam, and then you have that burst of energy and then everything around it's destroyed. Then it takes a long time to put it back together. It's more like seeing construction and deconstruction, more like playing with toys. Oh, this is kind of cool. Oh, this is not cool. I'm just going to rebuild and remodel and whatever. Move forward. Okay. So with consciousness, there's one. There's more unity at the trunk. And then you picture that like a cell splitting. If it's lower, it's going to experience polarity in a more like roller coaster way. Up, down, high highs, low lows. If you are balanced in yourself, it's going to be more like drifting along easily in a canoe on a calm river. And if you are in your higher consciousness, you're going to be experiencing polarity more like children playing, just seeing what they can do with life. It's not dramatic or traumatic, it's more playful and fun. Okay? What does this have to do with hearing and seeing the universe, consciousness? Well, again, it depends where you are on the elevator of the tree of life. If you are down at the lower levels, you might hear barking dogs. You might hear more demonic kinds of sounds. Okay? And then you might hear more angelic. It's going to be more up and down and up and down. If you're more neutral, you're going to hear and experience things a lot more quietly. And if you're up, you're going to hear and experience things more playfully. Okay? All right. So, the universe speaks to us using symbols. I often talk about the tree of life. Many cultures do. But it's also specifically tailored for you. Okay? So, if you are into cars, it's going to use that symbology of everything automotive. If you're a cook, it's going to use everything symbology of cooking. If you're a gamer or a computer programmer, it's going to use all that symbology of gaming and programming. Fill in the blank, okay? And because we are human and we have varied interests, it will speak to you using all of your interests, not just one. So the key for humans is to develop second sight. So first sight is a car is a car, a wheel is a wheel, a computer is a computer, a tree is a tree. You know, a cooking bowl is a cooking bowl. Fill in the blank. But then what you start to do to practice hearing and seeing and whatever, this spiritual sight, is you start looking at the tree, looking at the car, looking at your kitchen, looking at the blank canvas, looking at the computer, the game, and then you start asking yourself questions, which is also how the universe speaks to you. One of my favorite passages in a book, I don't necessarily like the book because it's really horrific, but there's a page in the novel Night by Elie Wiesel at the very beginning where Elie is asking his teacher, how do you know? How do you get into the gates of heaven or whatever they call it? And he's like, by asking questions. And Akbar Drummer basically says, I pray to God that I ask the right questions. Now, there's no wrong question. And what I'm doing is I'm teaching you to ask the questions and then how to listen for the answers. Okay? So, you look at the symbols around you, which often reflect who, what, and where you are in life. And you just become aware. You say, how does this reflection show how I'm doing inside? You know, if you're working on cars, I'm going to be talking about meditating tomorrow. You're thinking to yourself as you're repairing the car, you know, maybe the oil getting dirty and grimy. Maybe sometimes you feel that in your consciousness or in your body, and then you tell yourself it's time for an oil change. That's second sight. Maybe you're cooking and you're tasting it and it needs a little bit more salt or spice. And rather just only thinking about that, about the food, you're thinking to yourself, maybe my life could use a little bit more salt, a little bit more spice. And then you start acting upon that. Okay? So the first way to see and hear and experience God, the other side, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is to start developing your second sight. And you just do it by practice. You know, look around you, look at your hobbies. If you're into sports, you know, how can sports metaphors apply to your life? Okay? As you start practicing this, you might start experiencing visions or hearing thoughts that you know aren't yours. They're coming from somewhere else. Okay? And after I do a teaching on how to expand my light, the next teaching from the new year is how do I know if it's working? And one of the teachings during that time is going to be you start to feel a little crazy. Everything that this world says is crazy, you're going to start experiencing. Don't worry. One of my favorite memes is that weird red squirrel with crazy hair. And he says, don't worry, we're all crazy. It's not a competition. And then again, I did a YouTube video on what is the difference between schizophrenia and hearing God. And I really kind of came to tone. You know, the people who hear God and angels and everything, their tone is beautiful, right? The people who are schizophrenic, more often than not, the tone is more demonic and dark. And that's, to me, the difference. But that's a different topic for a different day. I have thoughts on that as well. So how you develop spiritual sight is by seeing things around you as symbols. But where you are on the elevator of consciousness will determine what those symbols and sounds sound like to you, what their tone will be. Now, someone might say, I'm schizophrenic, or I hear voices that are dark and demonic, but I don't feel I am, right? And so on a physical level, it could also be possible, yeah, it's not your fault where you are on the tree of consciousness. There are physical explanations, like our chemicals are off, right? So it could be a chemical issue. It could be a neurological issue, a story that was passed down from an ancestor, and you just got the bad DNA card dealt to you. So please don't feel that if you hear some of those darker demonic voices that I'm judging you or anyone. I'm not. I understand in this physical world there can be other explanations other than just us and where we are in our consciousness, okay? All right. But, and I've experienced that too. I have spina bifida, and sometimes my body doesn't absorb nutrients correctly. My nutrients will be off, then the chemicals in my brain will be off. But I'm at least able to tell people my chemicals are off right now. I can't talk to you because I do, and I have. I've heard those dark demonic voices. In fact, in Heaven Under Construction, there's poems in there called like the Demon Dance. Now what I can say is by practicing getting my physical chemicals balanced through thyroid medication, through diet, through exercise, and through mindfulness, meditation, visualization. As I say, you need to address all things. Yes, I am a subconscious coach, so I really hit that 1/4 piece of the pie called the subconscious. That's what my teachings are about. But I will often talk about and teach, you need to address all pieces of the pie. You know, I do address the physical aspect of my life. I work with my doctors. I do address the mental, emotional. If you need to work with counselors, develop mental, emotional coping strategies. Okay, so don't think that you need to work on your relationships. So don't think that I'm ignoring them. No, you have to address all pieces, but my piece that I'm a specialty at is the subconscious, okay? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a counselor, so go to those people for those pieces of your pie. All right, so first, you have to kind of know where you are on the elevator, the tree of life. You have to start seeing symbols as reflections of you or beyond the symbol. Apply it to your own life. And then you might even ask questions. And as you ask questions, the spirit world talks in symbols, in visions, like a daydream or an image that will be in your head. And it can actually speak in your language as thoughts in your mind. But somehow you know they're coming from somewhere else because you're not that smart. I mean, if I'm being honest, when I'm writing, I really feel like I'm channeling from a higher self or place. And I'll be like, ooh, this is good. I know I'm not this hard. This is good stuff. So that's also another way you might know that the universe is speaking through you and to you, okay? In addition, I mentioned yesterday that the Earth has an electromagnetic field, and we have an electromagnetic field, okay? And it's easier to do with people first, all right? So, how do you know what is your own thoughts and feelings, and what is the thoughts and feelings of somebody else? Because when we get into the 6-foot space of other people, our electromagnetic fields combine. And they either harmonize, they neutralize, or they repel. They combat, right? Sometimes you might be sitting next to someone and thinking or feeling something, and you're like, why am I thinking or feeling this? I don't think or feel this way normally. Okay. Well, that other person's electromagnetic field is getting into yours. And that is how we, quote unquote, read the thoughts of another person. That's how we experience telepathy. I will be walking by someone, their electromagnetic field will get into mine, and all of a sudden I'll have a flash of a thought or a feeling. I'm like, whoa. So that's what they think of me, or how they're feeling, or what they're thinking. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. It's like trying to learn a new language, or I don't know, like trying to see those third eye puzzles. You know, they look all weird, but if you actually relax your mind, you can see an image. It's a lot like that. That's why the universe also speaks with us when we're in between sleep and awake, because we're relaxed and our ego and our consciousness and our walls are down. Okay? That all has to be down for you to experience other people's thoughts and feelings. For example, I wasn't relaxed on the plane on my ride here to Arizona, so I wasn't necessarily thinking or feeling all the thoughts of everyone in a plane. But if I'm just like walking through the halls of my school, and I'm kind of the only one in the hall, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to be doing next, or not thinking, and somebody walks by me, my walls are down, and all of a sudden it's like, woo, oh, okay? So that has to be in place. So it's really easy to start practicing with people. Just try it. Sit next to someone. Maybe you can even seek certain people out. People who you know are anxious or always happy or whatever. Why are we attracted and want to spend time with people who are happy and upbeat? Because when we're in their field, it automatically tunes us up to be happy and upbeat. Why do we not want to be around sad, depressed, angry people? Because more often than not, when we're in their field, it tunes us up to be sad and angry and depressed, and we don't want to feel that. Okay? So you can practice that with people first. The next step, the next challenge, would be to be around anything that has consciousness, which is basically anything that's alive. So the second easiest way to experience this is if you have a pet. You've already experienced it. Why do we love to be around our pets? Because their consciousness, their field, emits unconditional love. And when we are around them, we tune ourselves up to feel that, and it feels good. The third way you could practice it is to sit under a tree. A tree has an electromagnetic field. You know, I told people once, I heard the trees talking, they were thirsty. So my sons and I got a bunch of jugs of water. We went across the street and we gave them a drink. And people were like, how did you know the trees are thirsty? I don't know, I just did. So that's the other way. Consciousness speaks through feeling. It sends out a signal. And the more, all right, so I guess there's two ways we do this. I keep talking about expanding consciousness, but maybe I should also talk about collapsing consciousness, because that's what the universe does. It expands and it collapses. It breathes in, it breathes out, it heartbeats, right? So when we expand our consciousness, we're learning new things, we're seeing new things. And when we collapse our consciousness, so expanding on the tree of life is going up the trunk, to the bough, to the branch, to the twig, to the leaf, right? Collapsing our consciousness is going from the leaf to the twig, to the branch, to the bough, back to the trunk, where we are all unified as one. Where what happens to one happens to all. If one feels pain, we all feel pain. That's why we want to help people. Because at the trunk level, what one feels, we all feel. Whether it's a tree, whether it's an animal, whether it's a human being. And if people don't feel it, they are the leaf. And they have a wall that blocks them off from the rest of the tree. That's why some people don't have sympathy or empathy, because they're only worried about the leaf. They're not worried about the whole tree. They don't understand that if the whole tree starts to get sick, eventually they will too. Okay? So, the first thing, know where you are on the elevator of the tree of consciousness. Number 2, know if you have some control over that or not. I would argue we all do, whether you were dealt a bad DNA card or not. You have the power to take care of your physical health and work with doctors. You have the power to work with psychologists, psychiatrists, spiritual advisors, mentors, read self-help books, listen to self-help talks on social media, and you have the power to take time to actually practice these things that you learn. Okay? So, know where you are, take control, start seeing the world around you like a reflection, start asking questions. What is this trying to teach me? What is this trying to show me? How can I apply this teaching to my life and actually do? Okay? When you are around people or things that are conscious, you may get flashes of images, thoughts, feelings. Try to understand what are your own and what are other people's. Maybe start asking yourself, whenever I go into a place in space, am I bringing in light? Am I bringing in courage? Am I bringing in acceptance? Am I bringing in self-confidence? Am I lifting others up? Am I bringing in compassion? Am I bringing in empathy? So that the trunk, am I bringing in truth? Am I bringing in clear perception? So that the trunk and the roots, the whole tree are healthy? And if not, that's okay. Sometimes you go into a place in space because there's a teacher there waiting for you to teach you some of these things. Okay? Because at the trunk level, there is no separation. And so when we send out a signal for help, it goes up the whole tree, and we actually pull in what we need. Okay? So how does the universe speak? It speaks in feeling. It speaks in vision. It might whisper thoughts in your mind. What that voice and feeling sounds like depends on where you are in the elevator of the tree of life. And by the way, moment to moment, day to day, we're going up and down that elevator all the time. Okay? So, it's just taking some time to be purposeful. Most of the time we're on autopilot. We're playing out our script like I talked about yesterday. But it's just taking some time, maybe once in the morning and once in the evening, and maybe a couple times throughout the day of practice. You know, if you're sitting on the subway or sitting in traffic or sitting in a restaurant eating by yourself, rather than plugging into your phone, unplug. Watch, observe, feel, and just see what happens. I hope this talk has helped someone today so that you can use your own thoughts, feelings, and experiences, lessons you've learned, to first keep helping yourself and then help all those around you. Because in order to keep the tree of life healthy, we all need to be in this together, helping each other. Peace and blessings.